Hello and welcome, everyone. We are so glad you're with us today. You've tuned in for a really special one. Welcome to the Mini Book Podcast, Proof of Christ Edition.
It's great to be here, and it really is a special edition because we're taking on a topic that, well, usually lives in two completely separate worlds.
Exactly. I mean, you've got science way over in one corner and you've got religion in the other, and they don't tend to play well together.
Right. There's this sort of perceived war between them.
But today we were looking at a book that just completely demolishes that wall. We're going to be exploring The Physics of God by the fantastic author Joseph Selbie.
And we should be clear right from the jump. This is not just a book about, vague spirituality. It is a really rigorous examination of how hard science, we're talking quantum physics, M theory, neuroscience, actually support some of the most ancient claims of theology.
And for this show specifically, we're narrowing the focus. We are looking at how it validates the divinity of Jesus Christ.
That's the core mission today.
Yep.
We want to use the framework, the actual content from the physics of God, to build a case, a scientific and spiritual proof for why Jesus Christ is God. And we're not just talking about him as a great teacher or a moral philosopher.
Well, this is much bigger. The book makes the case for Jesus as, well, the master of reality itself, the physicist behind the physics.
It's a huge claim, but Selbie really brings the data. Now, before we get into the atoms and the theology, we do have a really important piece of housekeeping to take care of.
We do. We want to be completely transparent with you, our listener. The voices you're hearing right now, mine and my co-hosts, they're generated by AI.
That's right. So we're artificial, but, and this is the absolute key point, the content, the facts, the arguments, the quotes we're sharing today, all of that comes straight from Joseph Selbie's book.
We're sort of the messengers, but the message, the knowledge, is all human. It all comes from the physics of God.
And we think this is a really fascinating way to explore these ideas, but it comes with a huge request from us, a very important one. If you find this conversation interesting, if you get any value from it at all, please go out and purchase The Physics of God. Support Joseph Selbie directly.
We're going to give you a tour, but the book itself is the destination. It's a masterpiece of detail that we just can't cover in an hour. Supporting the author ensures this kind of incredible research can continue.
Couldn't agree more.
So by all means, please subscribe to our podcast for future content. We'd love to have you back. But first and foremost, buy the book.
Okay, with that said, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So the mission, as we said, is to break down these really complex scientific topics, things you hear about like the observer effect or non-locality or the holographic universe.
Things that can sound really intimidating.
Totally. And we want to explain what they actually mean in simple terms and then connect them step by step to reveal the divinity of Christ.
The goal is to show how science, in a very real way, is finally catching up to what Jesus was teaching 2,000 years ago.
And to start that journey, we have to begin with the very nature of reality itself. We need to talk about what Selbie calls the light show illusion.
This is the foundation for everything else. Section 1, matter versus reality.
You know, it's funny. Growing up, and certainly in school, you're taught a very specific, a very concrete view of the world. It's often called scientific materialism. Can we maybe define that before we start taking it apart?
Absolutely. Scientific materialism has been the dominant worldview for, the last few centuries at least? And it's the belief that everything in the universe, literally everything, is made of matter and energy. Full stop.
And that's it. Nothing else.
That's it. The physical world, the things you can touch and taste and measure in a lab, is the only reality.
So in that worldview, if you can't put it in a beaker or see it under a microscope, it's just not real.
Exactly. Materialism would argue that your consciousness, your thoughts, your feelings, that's all just a chemical side effect of your brain firing. It's like steam coming off a hot engine. It's not the real thing. It's just a byproduct.
And so God, angels, miracles, all of that gets relegated to superstition.
Precisely. Because it doesn't fit into that tidy material box. It paints a picture of a universe that is, frankly, dead. It's a giant mechanical clockwork machine where everything is just billiard balls bouncing off each other according to predictable laws.
But the whole point of Selbie's book, The Big Twist, is that this view is actually scientifically out of date, right? That the materialists are the ones who are behind the times.
That is the great, beautiful irony of it all. Materialism as a philosophy is clinging desperately to 19th century Newtonian physics. But then the 20th century happened and we had the quantum revolution.
Right.
Science dug deep into the heart of the atom, expecting to find, tiny, hard, solid little balls of matter, like microscopic marbles.
But that's not what they found at all.
Not even close. Which brings us to this light show illusion, because I get it. When I touch this desk, it feels incredibly solid. When I stomp on the floor, it holds me up. How can that possibly be an illusion?
It seems like the most real thing there is.
It does. But it all comes down to the actual structure of the atom. We have this mental picture of it, like a little solar system. There's a nucleus in the middle, and then electrons are zipping around it.
Yeah, that's the model from science class.
And we think of all those little bits as solid dots. But Selbie points out, and all of physics confirms, that atoms are 99.9999% empty space.
I've heard that number, but I don't think I've ever really understood the scale of it. Can you give us a sense of that emptiness?
Okay, let's try an analogy. Imagine we take the nucleus of a hydrogen atom, that dense little center part, and we blow it up until it's the size of a golf ball, sitting right here in the middle of this room.
Okay, I've got a golf ball.
Now, where do you think its one little electron would be?
I don't know, maybe like a little dust mote orbiting at the edge of the room, a few feet away.
Not even close. If the nucleus is a golf ball, its electron would be a tiny speck circling about 2 miles away.
Wait.
2 miles. And everything in between that golf ball and that speck 2 miles away is absolutely nothing. Just empty space.
So this desk, the microphone, my own body, it's almost entirely just void.
It's a lattice of tiny energy points separated by vast, vast oceans of emptiness. But it gets even weirder.
Of course it does.
The particles themselves, the electrons, the quarks, the things we think of as stuff, they aren't even solid little balls. Selbie describes them beautifully as vortices of energy.
Vortices, like little whirlpools.
Exactly. Tiny, shimmering clouds of vibration. They don't have a physical structure in the way we think of a rock having structure. They have no internal parts. They're just energy.
Okay, then the big question. Why don't I fall right through my chair? Why does it hurt like crazy if I stub my toe on a table leg?
It's all about force fields. It's electrical repulsion. The energy frequencies of the atoms that make up your toe are repelling the energy frequencies of the atoms that make up the table leg.
So I'm not actually hitting it?
You never touch it. It's like where you try to push two really strong magnets together, North Pole to North Pole. You feel that invisible cushion of resistance,
You
right?
can't feel it pushing back.
That cushion feels solid, but your hands aren't touching anything. You are just feeling the interaction of invisible energy fields. So in the strictest physical sense, there is no such thing as matter. There is only organized energy.
And this is where Einstein comes in. We all know the famous equation EMC 2000 days.
Wait. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. And most people think that equation just explains how an atomic bomb works. That you can turn a little bit of mass into a whole lot of energy.
But it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. Selbie points out that it also means that mass is just energy. Matter is simply condensed or crystallized energy. It's light that has been slowed down to a vibration that creates the appearance, the illusion of solidity.
Light slowed down. That sounds incredibly biblical.
Doesn't it? Let there be light. The very first command of creation in Genesis. The Bible says that light is the foundational building block of all creation. And now, thousands of years later, physics is coming to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant physicist named Heinz Pagels, and he put it this way. The visible world is the invisible organization of energy.
The invisible organization of energy. I like
Well,
that. Okay, so let's make the turn. If the world is just energy masquerading as matter, how does this prove that Christ is God?
This is the absolute crucial pivot point. Because if the world was really made of hard, immutable, dead matter, like the materialists believe, then miracles would be impossible. You can't just wish a solid rock into a piece of bread. The laws of matter wouldn't allow it. It would be a violation.
Right. The machine can't just change its own gears.
But what if the world isn't a machine? What if it's a light show? A simulation made of responsive, programmable energy? Then the rules of the game are completely different.
Because if it's energy, it can be manipulated.
Exactly. If the world is fundamentally energy, then someone who has mastery over that energy has mastery over reality itself. And this is what sets the stage for understanding Jesus, not as some magician who is breaking the laws of nature.
But as the master of the light show.
The master of the light show, he had, to use a modern term, admin access to the source code of reality.
I love that. He had admin access, so when he walked on water, he wasn't defying gravity in some mechanical world.
He was altering the vibrational state of the energy vortices that we perceive as water. He was operating at a higher level of physics that we're only just beginning to glimpse.
That concept is so powerful. It moves miracles from the category of fairy tale into, well, into advanced technology or advanced consciousness.
It reframes them completely.
But for him to control the energy, there has to be a link, right? There has to be a connection between consciousness and energy. And I think that leads us perfectly into section 2, the intelligent observer and the mind of God.
This is where things go from weird to truly mind-bending. This is where we have to talk about the famous double-slit experiment.
Okay. I feel like I hear this experiment mentioned all the time in, pop science, but I really want to nail it down. Can you break it down as simply as possible?
Let's do it. So in the early days of quantum mechanics, scientists had a big debate. Is light a particle, like a tiny bullet, or is it a wave, like a ripple in a pond?
Particle or wave?
To figure it out, they set up a really simple experiment. They took a barrier and they cut 2 narrow vertical slits in it. And then behind that barrier, they put a detector wall, like a piece of photographic film that would show where the light landed.
Okay, simple enough so far.
Now, if they were firing particles, let's say tiny marbles, at the slits, what would you expect to see on the back wall?
Well, the marbles would either go through the left slit or the right slit. So you'd end up with 2 vertical lines on the wall behind them, 2 bands.
Exactly, 2 straight lines. But if you sent a wave, like a water wave, at the slits, something different happens. The wave goes through both slits at the same time, it splits, and then the 2 new little waves interfere with each other on the other side.
And that creates a different pattern.
Right. It creates what's called an interference pattern. Lots and lots of lines, not just 2. A central bright band, then dark, then bright, and so on.
Okay, so just to recap, particles make 2 lines, waves make lots of lines. So what did light do?
Well, here's where it starts to get strange. When they fired single photons, the particles of light, one at a time, through the slits, they got the interference pattern.
It's a wave pattern.
The wave pattern. Even though they were setting them one by one, it was as if each individual photon was going through both slits at the same time, behaving like a wave and interfering with itself.
That's already weird.
Yeah.
So light is a wave, mystery solved.
Ah, not quite. The scientists were, completely baffled by this. They wanted to know which slit did the photon actually go through. So they did the logical thing. They put a measuring device, a tiny camera, essentially, right next to the slits to watch the particles as they passed.
So they just decided to observe it.
They just observed it. And this is the moment that changes everything in science. This is the observer effect. The instant they turned on the camera to watch, the light stopped acting like a wave. It instantly snapped into being a particle. It went through one slit or the other, just like a marble. And the pattern on the back wall. No interference, just 2 bands.
Hold on, let me get this straight. Just by looking at it, the act of observation, they changed the physical reality of what the light was doing.
Yes. The act of intelligent observation collapsed the wave of possibility into a single particle of reality.
That sounds impossible. It breaks my brain a little bit.
It breaks everyone's brain. It sounds like straight-up magic, but it is the most tested, most verified principle in all of quantum physics. And the implication is earth-shattering. It implies that matter, at its most fundamental level, remains a cloud, a wave of infinite possibility, until an intelligent observer looks at it.
So matter cannot exist in a definite state without consciousness observing it.
Precisely. Amit Goswami, a theoretical nuclear physicist Selbie quotes in the book, puts it bluntly. There is no object in space-time without a conscious subject looking at it.
Okay. Let's take that to its logical cosmic conclusion. If the entire universe requires an observer to exist, to become real, who was observing the universe before humans evolved? Who was observing the Big Bang itself?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? And this is where scientific materialism hits a brick wall and just completely falls apart. But Selbie says the answer, from a spiritual perspective, is obvious. If the universe requires an observer to exist, there must be a prime, an infinite, a universal consciousness that is sustaining the universe by its very act of observation. There must be an ultimate observer who is always watching, always collapsing the quantum waves of potential into the physical reality we experience.
And that ultimate observer is God.
Yes. Selbie gives a definition of God based on this physics. God is infinite intelligent consciousness. God isn't some old man with a beard sitting on a cloud. God is the fundamental non-local awareness that is required to hold the very atomic structure of the universe together from moment to moment.
Okay, so how does this connect directly to Jesus? How does this prove he is God?
Well, think about one of Jesus's most powerful and controversial statements. In the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 30, he says, "I and my Father are one."
I've heard that verse 1,000 times in church.
We all have.
Yeah.
But now look at it through this new lens of quantum physics. Jesus isn't just making a statement about having a good relationship with God. He is saying that he is fully united, fully, you could say, entangled with that infinite intelligent consciousness.
He's not just a character in the video game.
He's one with the programmer. He isn't just a subject being observed by God. He represents a perfect union with the observer.
Wow.
A famous physicist, Sir James Jeans, once said that the universe looks less like a great machine and more like a great thought. It seems to be immaterial, mental, and spiritual. Jesus was the physical embodiment of that great thought. He was the Word made flesh.
The logos, the organizing principle.
Exactly. And because he was one with the Father, the source of all observation, he had the authority to co-determine reality.
So when he performed miracles, he wasn't like sending a prayer request up to God and hoping it would be answered.
No. He was using his own perfected, unified consciousness to observe a new reality into being.
Explain that with an example, like healing.
Okay, take the healing of the leper. A materialist doctor would see diseased cells that need to be treated with medicine over time. But Jesus, in his union with the Father, didn't see a leper. He observed a whole and healthy man. And because his consciousness was perfectly aligned with the prime observer, reality itself had to bend and align with his vision. He collapsed the wave function of disease and instantly collapsed the new wave function of health.
That is profound. It makes Jesus not just a messenger from God, but the very mechanism of reality itself.
It puts him at the center of creation, not just as a historical figure, but as a continuing cosmic principle.
So we have the light show and we have the observer, but we still perceive this physical world as being, separate from a spiritual world, from heaven. Where does heaven fit into this physics model?
Great question. And that brings us to section 3, the energy verse and string theory. This is where Selbie essentially maps out the geography of the spiritual world.
Okay, string theory is another one of those terms that sounds super scary and complicated. How does Selbie make it understandable?
He focuses on M theory, which is sort of the leading unified version of string theory today. And the core idea is actually not that complicated. In M theory, our entire physical universe, all the billions of galaxies, stars, and planets, is essentially a three-dimensional bubble.
A bubble.
A 3D bubble that is floating in a much, much larger, infinite, two-dimensional ocean of high-frequency energy.
A bubble in an ocean. I can picture that.
Physicists have a technical term for this ocean. They call it the bulk. Selbie gives it a more descriptive name, the energy verse.
So our whole physical reality is just this tiny low-frequency bubble inside a massive high-frequency reality.
Precisely. And it gets even more interesting. Within this bulk, this energy verse, there are countless other layers of reality called brains, which is short for membranes.
Brains.
Think of them as different sheets or dimensions of reality, all stacked on top of each other, all occupying the same space we do, but each one is vibrating at a different higher frequency.
Okay, give me an analogy for that.
It's like radio waves. Right now, in this room, there are dozens of radio stations, TV signals, cell phone conversations, Wi-Fi signals, all flying through the air.
Right, they're all here, but I can't see them or hear them.
But they are undeniably real. You just need a receiver, a radio tuned to the correct frequency to pick one up. These brains are like that. The energy verse, or heaven, is right here, right now. It is non-local. It is everywhere at once. We just can't perceive it because our physical bodies are tuned to a very low, dense frequency.
Wow. Okay, now connect this to Scripture.
Think about John 14:2. Jesus says,
"In my Father's house are many dwelling places," or some translations say many mansions.
Right. Selbie argues that Jesus wasn't talking about celestial real estate in the sky. He was giving us a lesson in cosmology. He's describing the structure of the cosmos. These dwelling places are the different frequency levels, the different brains in the energy verse.
So heaven isn't a physical place you travel to in a rocket ship after you die.
It's a frequency you tune into. It's a state of higher vibration. And the book argues that this energy verse is made of pure light and energy, and crucially, it acts as the template or the blueprint for our physical world.
This reminds me of terms like life force or spirit that you hear in almost every religion. How does that fit in?
It fits perfectly. Selbie talks about what physicists call subtle energy. In Chinese medicine, it's called qi or ki. In yogic traditions, it's called prana.
Right.
But in Christianity, the Latin word is spiritus, which means breath or wind. This is the Holy Spirit.
So the Holy Spirit is this subtle energy.
The Holy Spirit is the active source, the high-frequency energy that constantly flows from the energy-verse, from the bulk, into our physical bubble. It interpenetrates everything. It's what keeps the atoms spinning and what gives life to biological systems. It's the sustaining power of God made manifest.
And the proof of Christ in this context is what? His origin.
It's his origin. The argument is that Jesus descended from that high-frequency bulk, from the Father's house, into our low-frequency physical bubble. He bridged the two worlds.
So the incarnation wasn't a physical journey from a distant planet. It was a frequency step down.
He condensed his divine high-frequency consciousness into a human low-frequency form. But, and this is key, he never lost his connection to the source. He brought the full consciousness of the energy-verse into the physical illusion.
That's why he could speak with such absolute authority about heaven. He wasn't guessing.
He wasn't guessing, he was commuting.
Communing from the energy-verse. I love that image. It really helps explain the incarnation in a new way.
And understanding the structure, that the energy-verse is the source and our physical world is the result, is the absolute key to understanding how miracles work. Which brings us right to section 4, the holographic principle.
This might be my favorite concept in the entire book. The idea that our universe is a hologram.
It sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but the holographic principle is a serious mainstream theory in modern physics, supported by people like Stephen Hawking and Leonard Susskind. It suggests that the three-dimensional world we see and experience is actually a projection of two-dimensional information that's stored on the boundary of space.
Okay, let's definitely use an analogy here, because 2D information stored on the boundary of space is a little abstract.
Let's use the movie projector analogy. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Imagine you're in a movie theater. In the back of the room, you have the projector, and inside it is the film strip. That film is two-dimensional. It's flat. It's just a template of stored information.
Okay, got it.
But when a bright light shines through that 2D film and projects it onto the screen at the front of the theater, what do you see?
You see a movie. And it looks 3D. It has depth and characters and movement.
Exactly. But the reality, the source of the information, is the film, not the image on the screen. In this analogy, the energy-verse, or heaven, holds the film, the 2D energy template. Our physical world is the movie, the 3D holographic projection.
The physicist David Bohm talked about this too, didn't he? With different terms.
He did. He called the hidden template the implicate order, meaning reality is all folded up and hidden. And he called the physical world, we see the explicate order, meaning reality has been unfolded or projected.
So if I'm in the movie theater and I want to change the movie, let's use the biblical example. If I want to turn the water on screen into wine.
You can't just run up to the screen with a paintbrush and try to paint the water red. That's not how it works. That's just messing with the
So
projector.
you have to go back to the projector. You have to change the film itself.
I have to change the film. And that is the mechanics of a miracle. This is Selbie's central argument. Miracles are not magic that defy the laws of physics. They are the application of a higher physics. Jesus understood that the physical water in the jars at the wedding in Cana was just a holographic projection. To change it, he didn't manipulate the atoms directly. He accessed the film, the underlying energy template in the energy-verse.
He edited the source code.
He literally edited the energy template from H2O to wine. And because the physical world is just a slave to the template, the liquid in the jars had to change to match the new blueprint. It happened instantly because the projection must follow the film.
This explains instantaneous healing, too.
Absolutely. When he healed the man with the withered hand, he wasn't waiting for biological processes like cell division to slowly fix it. He went straight to the source. He restored the energy template of the man's hand to its perfect whole state. The physical atoms just snapped back into alignment with that new, perfect blueprint.
And the proof that Jesus is God, then, is that he had the access rights, the permissions to do this.
That's it, exactly. Only someone whose consciousness is fully united with the Creator, with the infinite intelligent consciousness that runs the whole show, could access and alter the holographic template at will. We are all characters stuck in the movie. He was in the projection booth.
But he did say something really interesting in John chapter 10, verse 34. He quotes the Psalms and says, "Ye are gods."
He did. And this is a very challenging teaching for many. But in this context, Selbie suggests Jesus was revealing our own dormant potential. Because we are all made in the image of God, because our consciousness is a spark of that divine consciousness, we have a latent connection to that power.
It's like we all have the hardware, but maybe we don't have the software installed.
Or we have the hardware, but we've forgotten the password. Jesus embodied the perfection of that connection. He showed us what a human being who is fully awake and fully united with God is capable of. He was the prototype, the firstborn of a new humanity.
So miracles are the proof that the energyverse is the real control center. But there's one miracle that stands head and shoulders above all the others, the resurrection.
Section 5, the resurrection and the non-local soul. This is the absolute cornerstone of the Christian faith, and Selbie's physics-based explanation for it is just fascinating.
We have to use the sock puppet analogy from the book here. It's so simple, but it's so incredibly effective.
It really is. Selbie asks us to imagine that our physical body is a sock puppet. It can move, it can talk, it interacts with the physical world around it, but what is it that actually makes it move?
The hand inside the sock.
Right. The hand is the source of the life and animation. In this analogy, the hand is your energy body, your soul. Your soul is a structured body of intelligent light and energy that actually exists in the energyverse. It interpenetrates the physical body, the sock, and animates it from within.
And so what is death in this analogy?
Death is simply the act of withdrawing the hand from the sock. The sock goes limp, it falls to the ground, it decays back into its component materials. The physical mechanism stops working. But the crucial question is, what happens to the hand?
Nothing. The hand is perfectly fine.
The hand is absolutely fine. It's still alive. It's still conscious. It just pulls back completely into the realm it came from, the energyverse.
And this model aligns perfectly with the thousands and thousands of documented near-death experiences, or NDEs.
It does. Selbie cites numerous studies on NDEs. People have cardiac arrest on the operating table. The hand leaves the sock. And what do they report? They don't report blackness or nothingness. They report more life, more awareness. They see a brilliant light. They feel an overwhelming sense of love and peace. They often look down at their own physical body on the table and realize, oh, that's just a shell. I'm still here.
It proves that consciousness is non-local, right? It isn't generated by the brain or trapped inside the skull.
Correct. The brain is just the receiver, the radio that tunes the non-local consciousness into the physical body. When the radio breaks, the broadcast signal continues just fine.
So then how was the resurrection of Jesus different? Because he didn't just float away as a spirit or a ghost. He came back in a body.
This is the ultimate demonstration of his divinity. When we die, our hand leaves the sock and we move on in the energyverse. But Jesus, because of his complete mastery over the physics of God, did something completely unique. He put the hand back into the sock.
But it wasn't just the same old sock, it was upgraded.
Exactly. He transformed the sock. He transmuted the physical matter of his crucified body into a glorious light body.
It's interesting how the Gospels are weirdly specific about his resurrected body. He could be touched. He ate fish with the disciples. So he was solid. He was physical.
Right.
But he could also appear and disappear in locked rooms. So he was energy. He wasn't bound by physical laws.
He was a hybrid being. He was demonstrating complete control over the hologram. He could choose to behave like a particle, which is solid, or a wave, which is energy, completely at will. He was living in both worlds at once.
He conquered death not by escaping it, but by utterly mastering it.
That's it exactly. St. Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians 15 when he says, I die daily. Selbie interprets this to mean that Paul, through deep prayer, was learning to access that stillness, that energy realm, even while he was alive. But Jesus took it to the ultimate level. The resurrection is the final proof that the energyverse, that heaven is real, that our consciousness survives physical death, and that Jesus is the absolute master of both realms.
It's the ultimate statement. He essentially looked at the universe and said, you think death is the final rule? Watch me edit the program and reverse the entire process.
And in doing so, he blazed a trail for the rest of us. He showed us the ultimate destiny of the human soul.
This whole framework is just... it's incredible. We've got the light show, the observer, the energyverse, the hologram, and the resurrection. But a listener right now might be asking, okay, this is great for Jesus, but what does it mean for me? What is the actual goal here?
That is the perfect question, and it brings us to our final section, Section 6, Union with God. This is where all this high-level physics becomes deeply personal.
And to understand this, we need to talk about another quantum phenomenon. Quantum entanglement.
Right. Quantum entanglement is one of the strangest and most profound discoveries in science. It's a phenomenon where two particles, if they are created together, remain mysteriously linked no matter how far apart they get in the universe.
So you could have one particle here on Earth, and the other one could be in the Andromeda galaxy, millions of light years away.
Millions of light years away. And if you perform a measurement on the particle here, say you measure its spin, the other particle in Andromeda will instantly, faster than the speed of light, adopt the opposite spin.
Instantly.
Instantly. It's as if they aren't two separate things. They're acting as a single object that just happens to be in two different places. They are entangled. Einstein famously called it spoopy action at a distance.
Okay, so what is the spiritual parallel to that?
Selbie argues that we, each of us, are entangled with God. Because our individual consciousness is a spark that originated from that one infinite intelligent consciousness, we are forever and inseparably linked to the Father. We can never truly be alone. That connection is fundamental and unbreakable.
But I don't always feel entangled. In fact, most of the time I feel pretty separate. I feel stressed or lonely or afraid.
And that's the human condition.
Yeah.
Selbie has a great phrase for this. He calls us gods with amnesia.
We've forgotten who we really are.
We have forgotten our entanglement. We become so completely focused on the sock puppet, the physical body, paying the bills, the traffic, the 24-hour news cycle, that we tune out the subtle, high-frequency signal from the energyverse. We start to believe that we are the sock.
So what is the goal then? What's the purpose of the Christian life in this context?
The goal is simply union. The great Christian mystics, people like St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Meister Eckhart, they all spoke about this in their own way. The goal is to wake up, to cure the amnesia, to experientially realize our oneness with the Father, just as Jesus taught and demonstrated.
I and my Father are one. He wasn't just stating a fact about himself. He was showing us the goal line.
Exactly. He came to show us the way back home to that realization. And the method he taught, it goes right back to the physics.
Stillness.
Be still and know that I am God. That's from Psalms 46.10.
Yeah.
Now, in physics terms, why is stillness the key?
Because the physical world, the hologram, is incredibly loud and distracting.
It's high-amplitude, low-frequency noise. Our five senses are constantly being bombarded by the 3D hologram. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. It completely dominates our conscious attention. When we practice stillness, whether you call it prayer, meditation, or contemplation, we are consciously turning down the volume on the illusion.
We're quieting the static on the radio so we can hear the real signal.
That's a perfect analogy. When you quiet the constant chatter of the sensory world and the egoic mind, you can begin to perceive the higher frequencies of the energyverse. You can begin to feel the presence of God that has been there the whole time, entangled with your very being.
Jesus modeled this for us constantly.
He did. The Gospels are full of accounts of him withdrawing to the mountains or the desert to pray, often all night. He was recharging. He was tuning back into the frequency of the Father. He was actively maintaining that perfect conscious union.
So for you, the listener, the takeaway isn't just to intellectually agree with these physics concepts. It's to actually practice the stillness.
It's to use the technology of prayer to access the reality of God for yourself. Physics tells us the connection is real and always there. Jesus showed us how to use it.
This has been such an incredible journey through this book. Let's try to bring it all home. Can we do a quick summary of the proof we've built?
Let's do it. Let's recap the case for Christ from the physics of God. First, physics shows us that what we call solid matter is an illusion, a light show, and that reality is fundamentally made of energy and light.
Second, it shows that consciousness is not a random byproduct, but is fundamental. An intelligent observer is required to collapse possibility into the reality we see.
Third, M-theory provides a scientific model for a vast, high-frequency energyverse that perfectly matches the biblical descriptions of heaven as a non-local realm of light.
Fourth, the holographic principle explains that miracles aren't magic. They are the result of having the consciousness to edit the underlying energy template of reality.
And fifth, the sock puppet nature of the soul explains the resurrection as the ultimate victory of the conscious energy body over the death of the physical body.
And when you put all of those pieces together,
you see a picture of Jesus Christ demonstrating perfect, absolute mastery over all these physics of God. He controlled the energy. He edited the hologram. He conquered physical death. He proved his divinity, not by breaking the laws of the universe, but by revealing that he was the author of them. He proved, through physics and action, that he is one with the Father, the infinite intelligent consciousness.
That is such a powerful and complete framework. It really does give you a reason to believe that satisfies both the heart and the logical mind.
It absolutely does. It bridges that gap.
Well, we are coming to the end of our time here. I just want to say thank you to you, the listener, for sticking with us through some pretty mind-bending concepts. We really hope your mind is as blown as ours are.
And please, if you enjoyed this discussion, the number one thing you can do is subscribe to our podcast. We have so much more content like this planned. And even better, tell a friend. If you know someone who has always struggled with that gap between science and their faith, send them a link to this.
And don't forget the comment section. We really want to hear from you. Are there other books like The Physics of God that bridge these worlds that you think we should cover in future episodes? Please let us know in the comments. We read every single one.
And finally, one last urgent, important reminder. Please go out and buy The Physics of God by Joseph Selbie. We've given you the summary, but the book itself is just packed with so many more details, scientific studies, and profound spiritual insights that we just couldn't fit in. Please support the author and deepen your own understanding of why Jesus Christ is God.
Thank you so much for subscribing and for listening. We truly appreciate you.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. If you really are quantumly entangled with the creator of the entire universe, and if your consciousness can, in some way, affect reality, what miracles are you unknowingly blocking in your own life, simply because you believe you were just a sock puppet?
Ooh, that is definitely something to chew on. Thanks for listening, everyone.